Today we're going to be discussing my first camera, the Sony ZV-E10. This is the Mark I version. I do not yet have the Mark II, although I plan to upgrade my camera once I have the chance. And I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about what I love about this camera, some reasons why I'm upgrading, and ultimately what I think of this wonderful device in the year 2025. So let's kick it off with some of the wonderful things that I think that this camera can do. First of all, I think it's still a great vlogging camera, but not one where you bring it around and hold it out in front of you. I think the days of vlogging like this are not dead, but you're much better off using the DJI Pocket 3, maybe the action cams that are out there, the quality on those is excellent, or maybe something a little bit more expensive than this. I do think that the image quality on the sensor is good enough, but the problem comes with the rolling shutter. You're going to get this extreme jello effect with this camera, and it's just because it has an old sensor. The dynamic range is there, the image quality is there, but the jello makes it unforgivable for any kind of movement, and that's why I think this is a much better studio camera than it is a movement camera. So as you can see, I have it rigged up here in this little bit of a small form factor. I have it kind of emulating when I use my FX34. I just have it strapped to a battery, and I have the screen flipped out right here, and attached is the lens, the Sigma 18-50. And I think that this lens is very important because it is the single differentiating factor that makes this camera body more useful than you would expect. Oh, my dog's here. Hello. Okay, well, my dog's just gonna sit in front of me for this part. So this lens right here is the Sigma 18-50, which is an f2.8 constant zoom. That means that you get the full frame equivalent of about a 28-70 f2.8. And that means that this is your do everything lens. I have brought this lens all around the world to Mexico, New York, Arizona, everywhere that you could imagine, and I've been able to take wonderful pictures. I've been able I've been able to take wonderful pictures and incredible videos with this lens. Please don't lick my camera. So the reason that oh my god, Velma. Okay, all right, we're gonna zoom out. We're gonna zoom out. So the reason why I want to get the version 2 of this camera is simply because of this lens. If I was on the Fuji system and I already had this lens in X mount, then I think I would be locked into that system. But since I have the opportunity to upgrade to the Sony ZV-E2, Sony ZV-E10 Mark II, I hate the names for this series. In that upgrade, I'm going to get better image quality, including a 10-bit and S-Log3 upgrade, as well as the ability to fully get the most out of this lens. I still think that this is a wonderful setup for anyone who's a beginning creator in this year as well. I do think that if you want to do live streaming, if you want to create content for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, anything vertical or horizontal, this will give you enough image quality to stand out from the sea of people shooting on their phones. Oh, good girl, thank you. I don't think that this is a perfect camera. In fact, it's not even really close. But the one thing that it did for me that no other camera has ever done is it introduced me to being able to change my lens on my sensor. And that's opened me to an entire world of vintage lenses, zooms, primes, all you can imagine in photography and video. And it's made my life so interesting to be able to see the world through so many different lenses. And if you have the opportunity to explore that with a camera that's just about $400 and gives you pretty stellar image quality, I'd say go for it. Pretty much all the concerns I have with this camera are addressed on the new version. The new version is about twice the price of this version. Do I think the new version is worth twice the price? Yes, absolutely. 10-bit recording alone is worth twice the price of this camera. But if you were running a production studio and you wanted to, let's say, have 2 angles instead of 1, then buying 2 of these instead of one of the Mark II, wow, that sentence is confusing. Buying 2 of these cameras instead of one ZV-E10 Mark II would definitely give you more production value than just buying one camera with 10-bit if you were in a studio setting. If you wanted to do anything outdoors, anything action related, even anything on a gimbal, you would want to upgrade to the new version. Just the rolling shutter is awful. Now, while I am on the subject of stabilization, Catalyst Browse combined with this camera kind of works. I'd say it's like 80% of the time it works and it gives you something that you could use. I'd much rather just attach this to a gimbal and use it that way because the stabilization from Catalyst Browse really does not save your image a lot of the time. And thankfully, you can use Catalyst Browse on all the new cameras as well. Although, again, since I'm upgrading to version 2, I will use a gimbal for that camera as well, just because the form factor and everything else makes a lot more sense for smooth, stable video to come from a gimbal, not from a handheld, shaky, tiny little plastic thing. I mean, all of this equipment on here, it's basically just a battery in order to weigh it down so I don't have the same micro jitters that I have on just the camera itself. Holding this thing, even though you can't really see it on camera, this is doing small shakes in my hand when I'm just trying to hold it steady. So this is not ideal for handheld work and vlogging or anything like that. It is, if you're trying to vlog or do anything with motion, you need a much wider lens so you can crop in for stabilization, and then you're just losing resolution. There's a lot of compromises that come with having something that struggles on the stabilization front. And this camera is great, but stabilization and the rolling shutter combined make it very difficult to use this in moving situations. So my final thoughts. If you need to buy a camera and your budget is $500, buy this camera right now. Buy this camera right now and don't look back, because you're probably going to forget about the 8-bit color, you're probably going to forget about the rolling shutter, you're probably going to forget about all the issues that I mentioned because you're just going to have a camera and be able to record with it, and that's the most important thing. However, I will be coming out with a guide that goes over the 8-bit color in this, how you can get the most out of your S-Log2 footage. Don't use S-Log3, it's gonna really ruin your footage on this camera. And basically how you can use certain tools such as Phantom LUTs, DaVinci Wide Gamut, and other tools in DaVinci Resolve in order to get the best image quality out of this camera possible. Thank you so much for watching, and if you feel like I missed anything, please let me know in the comments.